Here we go. Good evening from Israel. This is Jonathan Feldstein. I have the privilege of not just being your host today on this Inspiration from Zion webinar and podcast that will come out in our next episode, but as president of the Genesis 123 Foundation. And following who's following us live, I know most of you know what we do, but in the eventuality that you don't, our mission is simple: to build bridges between Jews and Christians with Israel in ways that are new, unique, and meaningful. We began in 2020 the Inspiration from Zion webinar series, which I was very excited was spun off to become the Inspiration from Zion podcast, where I serve as the only Orthodox Jewish host of a weekly podcast from Israel, about Israel, on the Charisma Podcast Network. And for our Christian friends, you know what that's about. Today, joining us, or at least those who have registered thus far, we have people from Germany, Nigeria, the UK, Canada, the US, Trinidad, and Bolivia, as well as Israel. And of course, our guests, I think it's not proper to call them panelists, because as you'll hear from them, they're much more. I do want to just offer a couple of announcements. First of all, so I don't forget, we often make these announcements at the end, but I'm afraid I'm going to forget. Tonight's, I say tonight, it's 10 o'clock at night here in Israel, program. Tonight's conversation is in memory of Hanan Gang, the father of a good friend who is currently in the week of mourning, Shiva, and Yitzchak Wiesel, whose son I only met today, and who literally provided tons, not tons, but lots and lots of kilos of meat for us to serve at a barbecue tomorrow for families of evacuees who live in the Gaza border area. And that's a separate conversation in and of itself. For everyone who's following live, you're invited to use the Q&A feature for any questions and comments. I will do my best to moderate all of those, and we're going to be respectful of Nava, Chevy, and Nechama's time tonight, especially Nechama, who may leave early, we hope, for good reasons. And we're going to try and make this all within about an hour, but we're going to do our best. And certainly all of this is going to be recorded. Those of you who have registered will get a copy of the YouTube once it's uploaded, and the podcast will come out next week. I also want two quick announcements. You may hear my phone dinging and interrupting. I've taken in the last almost 3 weeks to leave my phone on, not on silent, during all of my TV interviews, all of my radio interviews, all of my briefings, all of my webinars, and all of my prayer events, so that should there be an air raid siren somewhere in the country, you're hearing the alert on my phone. And obviously, except for Nava, who we hope does not have air raid, we don't hope nobody does, but Nava is joining us from England. If any of you need to leave for a couple of minutes, we obviously understand if there's a siren in your community. I made a mistake that my cousin pointed out in the invitation by implying that only men were called up. Obviously, that's not the case. Many women who serve in reserves were called up as well. But we're having a conversation today with women whose husbands are serving, where you're now being for a short time, we hope, a single parent and dealing with some time it's a bit traumatic. I do want to underscore what I just told you. You're going to answer whatever questions you want to. Don't answer whatever questions you don't want to. Interject anything. This is a non-political conversation, it's a non-military conversation, but I invite our guests today to make any comments about anything, because it's really their time. What I'd like to start doing is just begin, I'll go around and ask each of you just to please introduce yourselves, who you are, where you are, what's your husband's name, so people who want to be praying for him, talk about your children, how many, where they, what ages, if you like, where you're originally from, and your profession, if you're also doing managing a career in addition to your household at the moment. Nava, because you're on the top of the screen next to me, we'll just start with you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, good evening. I'm very happy to be here. So my name is Nava, Deutsch. I'm married to Zacharia. We used to live in Israel. I grew up in Switzerland, and then I moved to Israel. I met Zacharia, and we got married, lived in Efrat, and we have two kids, a 4-year-old, Yair, a boy, and a 2-year-old girl, Tamar. Yair actually just celebrated his 4th birthday last Shabbat, which sadly Zachariah wasn't part of it because he was called back almost 2 weeks ago. So right now we live in Leeds, which is in England. We live on the university campus, and we work for an organization called University Jewish Chaplaincy, where we basically host Jewish students. We help them out with any clashes if they have tests on the Sabbath, or any anti-Semitism and anything going on campus. Yeah, we're here for them. And
amazing. And you're in your 3rd year there.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll come back to that. Nechama?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Nechama. I am married to Tom, although I've actually been starting to use his Hebrew name throughout this 3-week period of the war, because people keep on asking if they can pray for him. And traditionally, when we pray for somebody, we pray with their Hebrew name and then the son of or the daughter of, and then their mom's name if they're alive. So married to Tom, but also Tuvia. And his Hebrew name is actually Tuvia Nisan Ben Yehudit, which translates to graciousness of the Lord, miraculous, the son of Jewish woman. So I just started calling him by his Hebrew name because I'm like, what greater time than to invoke graciousness of the Lord, miraculousness? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it just seems silly to refer to him as Tom during this time. So we are the proud parents of 3 little girls. We have Ahuva, who's 11, Adina, who's 8, and Leah, who is 5. And for the past almost 3 weeks, we haven't seen our husband and father, and he's a very central part of our family, as you can understand. Like, they're daddy's girls, you know what I mean? Like, and we really miss him. Thank God, we feel so grateful that we're actually able to be in contact with him. I know some people don't have their phone on them, or they don't know where their spouse is stationed, but we do. And yeah, here we are. We're just kind of thrust into this.
And you may be leaving us midterm?
Yes. So at 9:30 tonight, I actually got a text from my husband, and he was like, hey, I'm on the way home for a few hours. And I was like, what? I was like, you don't know what I'm doing tonight. And he's like, no, what? And I explained to him this, and he's like, oh, okay, well, I'll probably be home at 10:08, but I'll get gas on the way. I'll stall a little bit. So that's really, really exciting.
Yes, it is.
I think it may be a little bit of a tease for the kids, because then we'll kind of have to say goodbye again and go back to square one. But I think it's better.
For how long is he going to be home? Sorry.
Just overnight. I think he has to leave probably at 10 tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
But we'll take what we can get,
Yeah, exactly. Chevy.
Yeah, I've been warned about that, by the way, because so I'll just start from the beginning. My name is Chevy Makitar. I'm married to David, or David. A lot of people like to refer to him in that way. And I also got a surprise call this morning that he came back to visit us for a short 24-hour period. It was my intention to get him back specifically today because we celebrated my eldest, who is 5. We celebrated her birthday this evening. So that's also a little bit of my background noise because my in-laws are here. So at 10:15 p.m. So yeah, so it's a little bit noisy in my background if you do hear it. So I apologize on that. And also tonight I'm not alone, thankfully. My husband got called up that Saturday evening, October 7th, and basically we haven't seen him since then. And by we, I have 2 daughters, one who is 5, Lotem, and one who is 2 and 9 months, named Inbar. Lotem means a flower, a specific flower, and Inbar is the Hebrew word for amber. So for those who don't speak Hebrew, those are the in here. My husband just stepped out of the kids' room to tell his mother-in-law to quiet down. Okay. So yeah, so we live in Rosh Haim, which is a suburb of Tel Aviv. And I'm glad that Jonathan, you mentioned the siren alert because we just had one about 45 minutes ago. And I apologize in advance, but if we do have another one, the priorities are pretty clear for me, and I'll just step up and leave. So I apologize for that, but I'll come right back if needed. So
let me jump in, Chevy, because your husband was called up. Not everyone was called up on that first day on October 7th, and I know because both my son and my son-in-law, and we're now three of us in this conversation have had birthdays of little people with in your case or without fathers. My son-in-law was home on Monday night but went home, and today was my grandson's 5th birthday party. And that's a challenge for you as mothers to celebrate and do so when the father's not home. By the fact that your husband was called up on the very first day indicates a combat position. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yeah. What is he in?
In the northern border, and not in the southern border. Basically, the state of Israel was afraid once that attack took place, immediately they understood that we potentially might have a threat from two fronts, and therefore immediately recruited also a very large amount of soldiers to go both down south and up north. So my husband has been pretty far up north. I can't say where, but pretty far up north and been patrolling the border or close to the border for the last 3 weeks. So, practicing and doing everything they need to be prepared if anything turns to the worse.
Sure.
But yeah, we were following very closely. One of my friends actually from the army, I used to serve in the army. I don't know who mentioned it before, but for me, about the female reservists, you mentioned it. And for me, that was one of the hardest things during this war. I think I mentioned this to you, Jonathan, but I used to be called up every single battle that we had. So I was an officer in the education corps, and usually what we do is we help the civilians during a war or any kind of round of violence. And I'm used to being called up in uniform. This was the first time that I wasn't called up myself, and it took a toll on me emotionally also, because but we can discuss that later. But I think that was part of the battle, is that he was called up and not me. That was a very weird feeling, but and it evolved. That's when we started.
Do you feel like you're not contributing?
I did feel that at the beginning, to be completely honest. I used to work for an Israel education organization, so I was either in uniform helping down south. Unfortunately, actually, also during the Second Lebanon War, I was also in uniform. So I was either in uniform or I was helping, with the anti-Israeli sentiment online and in social media and just on campuses and whatever, or doing both. And this is the first time that I'm really not doing either one. And it felt like I'm just, quote unquote, just a mom. That was a very hard feeling for me. Again, no disrespect to anyone, and to each their own, and I love my children and I love my role as a mom, but it's not the only thing that defines me. And for me, I love how I see like Jonathan's face a little bit puzzled, but Nava and Nechama's like
no,
shaking their hands. So they're clearly a gender
observation.
I'm not puzzled. I'm understanding to the best of my ability to understand that, and I respect it. And I'm really grateful for you sharing that so openly. We're having a serious conversation about all of the implications of you three being home alone as mothers, and that's part of yours. That you would have normally would have been called up.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's an incredible insight also into the Israeli army. Our soldiers want to fight. Like, they have such a nationalistic pride that you really felt like it was a struggle for you.
Yeah,
that you were not being called up, because
you feel left out of the biggest party ever, right? It's not a party, but it's the biggest thing happening in our history.
It's just amazing. Like, you're not shying away, you're not backing down. Like, you're upset that you're not able to serve. It's incredible.
To do more, really, to do more.
It's volumes.
Nechama, to the extent that you can, tell us where Tuvia is stationed and what he's doing.
So he also left on that first Saturday, October 7th. It wasn't a birthday party per se, but it was actually it was a holiday called Simchat Torah, which is celebrating our Torah. And we were at like a big community potluck lunch, basically. And it was a really happy day. And there's dancing and singing and candy and food. And just, he had to just leave in middle. And I think the hardest part was like watching the kids. I'm going to answer your question in a second. The hardest part was just watching the kids like separate from him. It ripped my heart out, especially my oldest, who really understood what was going on. Like she just was inconsolable, and it was really, really difficult. I even had to have somebody take the kids so I could like cry and emote. Anyway, he's serving. What his unit did, they're in combat also. They went and replaced a unit that went down south. And they basically are guarding like the Arab village that they had previously been guarding. So they just kind of switched places with, with troops that were moving down south, and now they're just kind of protecting the Jews that live in villages around there, and just, keeping the peace over there to make sure the Arabs don't.
Nava, did you log in from somewhere else, or we have your husband joining?
Oh, hello. Look at this.
No, I see Zacharia's picture.
Right.
Well, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Where is Zacharia? I don't know, was he called up on that first day? It was Shabbat there.
So it's
how did you find out?
Yeah, so we celebrated 2 days of
Oh yeah.
So because we're here just for a short amount of time, we did do Havdalah in between, and we heard about what's going on, but actually also like at Shul, everyone came
Shul synagogue.
Yeah, at the synagogue. Most of the students told us that something is going on in Israel, and yeah, and then when we heard what was going on for real, when we checked the news and everything, we actually had to go back then in the evening to celebrate Simchat Torah.
True.
That was like such a big, so hard. It was really, really hard. So Zacharia didn't get called up right away. He got called up a week and a half ago, if I remember right. Okay. And yeah, and since then he's there. We can be in touch.
Tuvia, welcome home.
Thank you. Wow, it's in real time. Hold on. Let me.
Amazing.
I feel like he's like a blurred face because
let me unblur this background.
How beautiful.
It actually
how wonderful
shut off the
that we
camera.
get to be here with you for this.
Yo, how do I unblur this?
Just click unblur. No, go back.
No, I clicked unblur. Hold on. Hold on, guys. This is not an actual mansplain. I literally don't know how to unblur my background.
There you go.
Here he is.
Welcome home.
Guys, this is Tom Tavia. He's back.
Yes.
Yeah,
This is surreal.
you look at that. Welcome home. It's so wonderful. Yeah, you both know you both need to go be together, but Nechama, you're welcome to stay as long as you can and want.
Of course, I will.
Okay. It's an important conversation, and the fact that you just walked in, I wish that 500 people were watching, because what we're seeing is happening. It happened last week, it's happening this week, and that's crazy. One of the, if you will, the nice thing about being this lovely country, the People's Army, that we're deployed in our backyard. It's not like you're in Afghanistan.
This is not Iraq. I mean, it is Iraq, but we also live here.
40 minutes away. My son-in-law came home this week. My son came home this week, and then they zip back. So welcome home. Enjoy your respite and come back without the uniform soon and safely.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So wait, Nechama, until this moment, what's been the hardest thing with him being away? You mentioned honestly, your oldest daughter when he left.
Yeah, it's actually been very difficult to kind of deal with my own anxiety and fears, and also keep my children's fears and anxiety at bay. It's really difficult. Like, I don't want to just collapse into like a puddle of tears. I have to be the strong one, but at the same time, I need to also feel my feelings. It's really just a combination of fear and loneliness, I would say. And then there's like the nitty gritty, like, having to do all of like the household chores on my own. Like I have to like wash dishes now. And, you know, I was thanking God for this Roborock vacuum the other day because I was like, I don't know how the heck my floors would get clean. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so there's like practical things like that. And then there's also the emotional component. So yeah, fear and anxiety definitely are fear, anxiety, and the loneliness. It's hard, you know. He's my best friend. Like he's not just my husband who's not here. It's really.
Do you have friends that like also their husbands got called in?
So I actually have one other friend who lives in like a neighboring town, but for whatever reason, in my own neighborhood, I'm one of the only people who has a husband who's in Miluim.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or meaning other people don't even have a spouse, not a husband or a wife, because I live in a unique community and a lot of people moved to Israel post-army. So they're just Americans that came here like after school. So, and it's also a young community. So people's children are not even serving yet. I have one friend in the neighborhood whose son is in the army, and one friend in a neighbor, you know, like in a 7 minutes away type of neighborhood whose husband is. But I know that like in Efrat, or maybe even in a different part of Beit Shemesh, there are like, you know, 300 people in a synagogue who are called up, you know?
Right. Efrat cleared out on that first day,
Yeah.
October 7th. That's how
Our
we
synagogue
celebrate.
as well. I was actually, for the first time in my life, was supposed to actually read in the Torah. We could discuss that on a different
Okay.
on a different
Wow,
Zoom call,
this
but
is-
that was going to be the first time that we do it in our kind of new community. And I came that morning of Simchat Torah, that Saturday morning, and I'd already known that something's going on, and just the synagogue had started emptying out. As I was checking, where's there a safe room? Can we bring kids over? Because basically this is the holiday of kids. So I was just kind of checking things around and starting. And as I step out of the synagogue, just notifying all the little kids and all the families that were coming in, I was like, you guys should go home. There's a war. You guys should go home. There's a war. You guys should go home. And as I was standing on the street explaining, someone who thought that because we're religious, we don't know what's going on, he yelled at me from the porch. He's like, hey guys, you shouldn't be standing outside. There's a war starting. So it was really like, people I don't know, right? Like super real, super surreal also.
Surreal,
Kind of got it in your face on that day. I was actually wondering, Nava, do you mind, Jonathan, if I ask Nava,
No, this is great.
do you have anyone around you? I mean, I have everyone I know.
So I think that's one of the biggest struggles here. I have lots of students that are amazing and I really appreciate everything they do. They come over, they are with the kids and they help like Shabbat usually. So on the Sabbath we host also Friday nights, usually more lunch. So we have between 50 and 60 students over every Shabbat, which is great. And they take initiative. They take like they cook and they make games and it's really, really good. But for me as a woman and as a mother, I don't have friends here. So it's like it's difficult because it's a very thin line and I can't really share everything with the students because I mean it is different, like we're in a different age and everything. And I'm a kind of a role model. So this is one of the most difficult things.
Yeah, the tables have turned, right? So usually you're the one helping them with all the anti-Semitism that they're going through.
Wow,
Now.
it's so hard for me. They're very sweet. Like the community opened a meal train for me to send me every night a meal, which is so helpful. But like I really had to learn. It's so much out of my comfort zone to accept that. But it's helpful, which is great. Actually, a friend of mine in Israel called the community up and told them that it might be a good idea to make a meal trade. So that was very sweet. But it is. It feels also like I really feel everything what's going on in Israel, and then I step out, I go shopping, or I go to university, or I go, and everything's normal. No one, everything's just continuing, and this is so hard.
And here it's not normal at all. Not anywhere. Nav, I think you just answered it, and Chevy, you didn't yet. But what's the hard? But if you want to add, what's the hardest thing with your husband's not being home?
Definitely. I mean, I heard Nechama, I was actually thinking about that term of like the nitty-gritty stuff, and I think that's our day-to-day life. And once our day-to-day life pretty much flipped on its own, like flipped over, again, my girls are younger. They're very dependent in me. They like sitting watching on their tablet. I don't like it as much. So for me, usually it would be to go outside to the playground, and then you're kind of thinking, okay, can I run fast enough finding my two children in the minute and a half, which is considered a lot, that I have once the siren goes off? Should I go to that playground because do I know if there's a safe room in that area? No, so we can't go there. Can we go there? No, I don't want to drive anywhere. I don't want to drive to my parents who are an hour away because, again, if there'll be a siren on the way, I won't have enough time to take two kids out of their car seats and hide under the car. Just like the weird considerations. It's very weird. It's very strange. Someone said today in one of my groups, they were like, it's kind of like COVID, right? Like we're all secluded in our own little bubble, but the difference is that at least now we can hug each other. And that was very sweet that she said that. But so in the beginning, that's kind of what I did to really help this. Basically, it's like an explosion ready to explode, but it's being contained the whole time. Like my two children wanting to go outside, wanting to see friends, wanting somewhat of normalcy, and I can't give it to them. And they also don't understand really why. And I think that is it's a very thin line, or like a weird balance that I'm really trying to figure that out. And it's a daily struggle, to be honest.
What did you
real neediness,
explain?
too.
Sorry, can I ask? What did you explain to your kids where your husband went? Like what's
Oh, that was actually the easier part. He went to be a soldier and he's going to protect us. He's actually just now walking right in front of me. It's nice to see. He's not in uniform, but maybe he can also come and say hello soon.
We love that.
Okay,
So that was
wait.
the easy.
Mine is
easy one
walking
to-
right in front of me too. So I really do feel bad. I just want to bow out. We have so few time, so few hours
course.
together. Thank you for your understanding. I would love to watch the recording of this because I find it fascinating.
Well, Nechama,
Really,
before you
like-
go, is there anything that this is sort of my last question, but what do you want people to know? What's the penultimate thing that people watching and listening right now need to know about what's going on, and you as a mom whose husband just walked in the house, but for 3 weeks wasn't here and is going back tomorrow?
The penultimate thing is that we need to end this war in the quickest way possible, but also get all of our hostages back and, proportionately fight back for what we were attacked in the most gruesome manner. There's no words to describe it. So I need it to end because I need my husband back and I need to stop worrying, that he's going to be killed on the front lines. And I also need the hostages back, and I need, obviously, normalcy in a certain way is never going to come back to our country. But in what way we can, we need to just end this, whatever that means. I don't know what it means. I'm not a military specialist, okay? But it just needs to end. Like, I don't know how much longer I can go on like this. It's really intense. Even like we said, like the nitty gritty, like I'm not the one who gets up in the morning and gets my kids out and, gets them to take their Ritalin. And like even like that, like I just need my husband to do that. And it just needs to end. That's what.
Thank
I wish I had something more articulate to say, but that's all.
It's from the heart.
Pretty much it.
It's
Yeah.
from the heart.
Thank you so
for
much,
joining
everyone.
us.
really
Thank
nice
you
Thank you
meeting
for
you?
having me. Yeah, it was really nice to meet you guys. Thank you for
Thank you.
having me.
I'm sending a hug.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sending it right back to you guys. You're incredible. Keep it up. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone here. I don't know, can't even see who's watching this, but thank
Okay.
you for being here. Thank you
Yeah.
for listening.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
I don't even remember who was in the middle of something.
I was, and I'm just gonna say that my husband refuses to come.
Okay.
Maybe if I say it out loud, he'll hear me. He doesn't want to come to the front. That's kind of the our division between us. I'm in the front and he's in the back end. So
Okay.
that's usually how we get things done. Yeah.
As long as he's
Um,
safe.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you were asking about what's really the difficult-
Hardest.
Oh, I think Nava asked what I said, what I
Your
explained
kids.
Right.
to the kids.
I was
Right.
just wondering because
Yeah.
that was one thing that we were struggling with.
What
Yeah.
did you
I
say,
think-
Nava?
So we told them that, I mean, my 2-year-old daughter doesn't
Yeah.
really understand what's going on, but she does understand that her daddy is not home, and she shows like she doesn't sleep well, she doesn't eat, so she shows it like in that way. But our son, we just told him that there's an injured person in Israel, and daddy goes to help him, because we wanted to keep it like, don't want to scare him and say a lot of people. And then we also explained how we can help from far. So so we are actually in control of the situation. But then he comes back home from nursery, and he's going to a Jewish nursery, and he told me, Ima, in Israel they're very naughty people, right?
Oh no.
So I
he
did. I
heard.
tried. I said, yeah, everywhere there's some naughty people, and we have to deal with them, but that's okay. But that's why I was just wondering what you said.
No, I think also like this situation is actually different. I divide my answer or what I explained to them into two different sects, because there was that day when things were happening and going on. And, my daughter was super excited to go to the synagogue. She really wanted to see all her friends and dance and whatever. And we contained her in the house. And she asked, why am I not going? Why am I not leaving? Why are you locking the door? Why are you guys frantic around? What? So she was pretty aware of what's going on. And then probably a mistake, but what I said to her was that there are bad people going around and we need to stay safe in our home. And then since then, basically every time we step out or every time there's a siren and we go in the safe room in our house, she asked, are the bad people outside? Now, I had already known at that point that they were going into people's homes. So I think at first I was more dealing with that, of the safety of your own home. Like, that is no longer a thing here. You cannot be safe even in your own home. And that was really where my head was at. Also at that point, I didn't know that he'll be called up, or wasn't sure of it. And then from then it's already a different story, as the sirens, and we need to be in a safe room. And once we're in the safe room, we're safe and everything's okay. But every single time the siren turns off, she asks, are the bad guys outside? So I definitely wasn't a good mom at that point, or at least I didn't know the.
We don't get any
process.
training in it. I mean,
No,
just
no,
throwing
we
them
should. No, we
Well,
don't.
I'm just going to interject, watching my daughter with her 3 and admiring everything that she's going through and knowing how hard it is. I'm going to correct you, Chevy. You were never not a good mom. You just said something that you would probably have said differently but you're being an amazing mom for your children. And that's what we're seeing, people step up. And that's why it's so hard, because Nav, you're right. There's no training for this.
Right.
There's no training for this at all. And Chevy, where you are, if not daily, awful close to it, you're having air raid sirens. So it's an ongoing trauma.
Yeah, we had, well, until now we had, I think, 4 or 5 from the beginning of, it's already, Israelis, we joke about these things like, oh, it had to be during bath time. It had to be, like 10 minutes after the kids fell asleep. It had to be, right? He had to do it. So yet again, this evening, there were also jokes about that. But yeah, we've had about 4 or 5 times. One was 7 p.m., one was at 9:30, one was, my girls were in their towels in their safe room tonight also. So again, just unfortunately, this is becoming the normal. And I wish it weren't. And I don't think that, I think someone told me that Israeli children are raised, she said that very, very clearly, and it hit me. That people who move to Israel don't necessarily have that, or kind of need to grow that stamina, that it's kind of like embedded into us, because no matter when you grew up in Israel, there was something going on. So I know it might.
No, it's good, but I want to go deeper on that, because I've been referring to it as part of our DNA as Israelis, and I don't have that, but I see it with my kids.
Yeah, that they're just, they got it once, because it's something about us that.
But no, finish.
No, that's just, I mean, again, it's not, this friend that was mentioning, it was her husband is Australian, who immigrated to Israel. I grew up in Israel to American parents, but grew up here. And I feel that there's a different, the length of how long we can hold our breath in these situations. That is where I think we differ from other people maybe who moved to Israel, because we know that it's going to happen again. We know that no matter what, this is part of how we grow up and how we raise our children. I have friends who left that Saturday night. They just flew abroad. And, to each their own, but you can't raise an Israeli child every time there's something, you run away. Like it's not going to work. You have to have a lot of mileage to make that work, right? So
that was a question actually that a few people who are following live or who registered asked the question if you would consider it. Nava, you're not here, and I suspect part of you. This is an interesting question. If you could just pick up and come back right now, would you?
Right. I mean, we did think of it when Zachariah got called in, if I and the kids should also go to Israel. But so there are two things. So because we live here and the kids have their schools here and their friends here, and I just wanted to maintain this like stability for them.
Yeah.
So it was pretty clear for us that we are staying right now. We don't know how long Zachariah is going to be gone. So eventually, if I see it's too long and it's too heavy for me, like of course, I mean Israel is home.
Yeah.
And also I just feel like as a chaplain, as like my work here is so important right now to be with the students, go talk to the university. Just there's so much going on, and I feel like I really believe that Zachariah is doing his job in Israel now, and I'm doing my job here. And I believe that for everyone, like everyone, wherever he is, doesn't have to be in Israel. It could be anywhere. They just do their job to help. To help.
Right.
So,
Excellent answer. But now I have a question for you. I wanted to pick up on something Chevy said, because she was born and grew up here. You weren't. You came to Israel as an adult, and now you're 3 years out of Israel as an emissary. How do you feel like you're dealing with this differently, uniquely? It's not part of your DNA.
No,
yet.
it's not. I grew up in Switzerland. In Switzerland, we're very used to you have a problem, you sit down and you talk about it. Which whatever we see in history, it doesn't really work in Israel and with our neighbors. Yeah, I don't know. I was in Israel once. We were married for 3 weeks, and then there was a war called Tzukaitan. I'm not sure what it's
Protective Edge.
Okay, so Zachariah went into the army for a month, and I didn't see him, and it was really hard, like hard on our marriage, our young marriage, but also our individual. There's lots of fear, I'm not sure if I would say I would be different than Israelis, but maybe it's less normal. It's definitely less normal.
Got it. How is this war? I mean, Chevy, you were watching it live. You from all of the hats that you wear unfolding, you knew that morning what was going on. You didn't know. None of us knew how bad.
Right.
How has this impacted your faith, either of you?
Well, I don't think I don't feel like it impacted my faith. I think this time around is very different. I feel like it's like a holy war in essence, and it's at least for Jews, a holy war means a war you must go to. A groom on the night of his wedding must go to this war. Like, I feel like that's really where I'm at. It's funny because right before this whole thing happened, we were also on a week off. It was the holiday of Sukkot, and we were all on the week off with our kids. And my husband owns his own private business, so he was working the whole time. And again, it was just me with the kids. I was losing my mind, losing it. Really, I was like this close from jumping off the cliff. Like I was really bad. It was a very hard time. And then 2 weeks into this war, my husband was like, I didn't hear you you're not complaining about anything. How could this be? Like, just 2 weeks ago you were in a different position. I was like, because I don't know, there's something about the belief that this is needed, right? Like I understand, I get it. I get why this is needed. I get why you need to be there and I'm here. And it's different because when you were just at work, I didn't get it. And now I do. And I think that's really where I think in general, like all Israeli society is at. We all really feel like this is something, this is big. And this is really something that that it's kind of, I don't really hear anyone talking about it as like God sent, right? Because it's hard to address that in that sense. But in a way, we kind of all feel the need to protect ourselves. We understand why we're doing this. So I think the faith in God just either solidified or even got stronger.
Right.
In that sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah, impacted does not mean necessarily diminishing
For the
of, and
worse.
I think you get a good answer. Nava, what you want to add anything?
Yeah,
about your
no, I
faith?
agree. I also I'm less like asking myself how and why, and it's like things that we're able to read from the news. It's just like it's horrible. It's horrible. But I do feel like I do feel now that we are coming together to do something so important, and I'm more busy asking God to help our nation to to be protected and to get done whatever has to be done to get to peace. So that's more my conversation with God.
Yeah, I also think like as a society, I think we've all become more religious, even if it's for the moment. Like you
Wow.
see a lot of secular soldiers or reservists all of a sudden, saying the Kiddush Friday night or doing the blessings of the Sabbath and stuff like that. Like you can see people, I've seen questions to rabbis, can you eat non-kosher food or food that was made in a non-kosher home that's been donated by civilians, right? So like people are really being, I guess it's like a more round than we usually are, right? I can't, for lack of a better term. It's not like, okay, my way and your way, and we'll never meet, but rather we're creating something a little bit more holistic without even noticing, and without it feeling like everyone was talking about in the news that just the week before this thing, they were talking about in Tel Aviv, will they allow the dancing to be mixed dancing, or will it be separate dancing in the streets of Tel Aviv during Simchat Torah, right? So
When we say
there was
mixed and separate, the traditional Jewish
custom
custom is that men and women celebrate and pray, worship separately, and there have been a lot of conflicts on that
right
in the public sphere recently.
So they're talking a lot about, just a week ago we were talking about that, and now who cares about that? Like now we're all in this together, right? It doesn't feel like that there are different societies or different communities, like we're all for one and one for all. Has never been more true for Israelis, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right. I feel this here with our students, like students that are not interested, not in nothing. They come up and they just stand up for themselves. We had a vigil on a campus like a week ago, and about 300 students came with flags, and there were speeches, and we all sang Hatikva, and students that like I've never seen. I didn't even know they exist. So
wow, can continue to strengthen that, because it's not going to be easy for them in the coming weeks for sure. Chevy, you mentioned your husband has his own business. How are things economically? How are you able to manage? A lot of Israelis are out of work right now.
Well, first of all, the government everyone has already addressed that. The government might repay businesses, but nobody's really getting into that just yet because we're not sure how long this is going to be.
Right.
But his family, it's a family business. So basically his dad has really taken a lot of the toll. I actually have not gotten back to work. And it's like one of those things that, I can try to juggle, but then I can have all three balls fall on my head because that's what's going to happen if I even try. So the first thing I said was work comes last in the priorities. And first, it's the people of Israel, or my family, people of Israel, the state of Israel. It's kind of Freudian that I flip those, because sometimes I do feel like I put my family back. If we're going back to what I said in the beginning, it took me 4 days to put my girls in front of a tablet so that I can do something that helps the society, 4 days. And then since then, I never looked back. Like they have every day, there's a time where they sit on their tablet because I need to do something for the people of Israel, for the state of Israel. Like I can't. It's bigger than me. So at the moment, I don't know what's going to happen with my job. But I shouldn't. You're not allowed to fire anyone during this period. That's really the only law that came out, or that's explicitly said that you cannot fire anyone if the reason why they didn't come to work is whether they were called on reserve duty or that their spouses were called on reserve duty and they have kids under the age of 14. So you're not allowed to fire anyone. So at least my job is secured. Will I get paid? I don't know.
Right.
But, come what may.
Right. And Nava, you and Zachari are there as a team.
Yeah.
Does it impact you financially?
So I don't think it will impact us financially, but I do take his workload also, which is a lot. And I just miss, like, for example, tonight we had the chief rabbi over on campus.
The chief rabbi of the United Kingdom.
He came to speak to us, and it was a very really, really amazing that he came. But usually I'm more, I go out with students for coffees and Shabbat meals and stuff. But now I had to be in the front line. I organized all the security. I organized.
Wow.
I had to speak, and it's like it's not me. And I just also, when I prepared the speech, I was like, I can't really call Zachariah up now. I don't know what he's up to. Like, he's not gonna answer me. So thank God I had I spoke to my brother, but I really miss that. Like, I can't talk to him for whenever I want, whenever I need.
Right.
So that's what's like, it's challenging.
I get it. What's you Nava, you're sitting in England, Zachari is here. Obviously he's in a place where people are getting hurt or risk getting hurt. And Chevy, your husband, is in the north, and the concern of and there have been cross-border incidents there, and everyone's just holding their breath to see what's going to happen. What are your biggest concerns?
Obviously,
you go. No, you go.
No, obviously it's that's something like that he might get injured. I also, like, on a Friday night when the kids, I put them to sleep. We had a nice Friday night dinner, and then I put them to sleep, and then, like, it hit me. I was like, if something happens now to Zachariah, I'm here. I don't even know who's gonna tell me. Like, no one's gonna come knock. I don't know what's gonna happen. So that really kind of freaked me out. Yeah, I think that's the most. And then obviously also, God willing, he's gonna come back. But then the PTSD. Is there any trauma, things that have to be worked on?
Yeah.
Chevy?
I'm gonna tap into that, and just gonna say that that's also part of the reason why I didn't leave. You had asked Nava if she would leave and come back to Israel, and I was offered quite a few times to leave, including by my mother-in-law, saying, I really feel more safe if you weren't here. Take the kids, just go to the States, go be with your family. And I said to her, but what if something, God forbid, happens to him? I can't be, however many miles away. I can't. That's not a thing. I will not survive that. I need to be able to reach him as soon as possible, and just, God forbid. So I connect to that completely. And everyone's afraid of that knock. And you're saying that, in a way, I won't even get the knock.
Right.
That's right. Like, terrible, just terrible. So I'm so sorry for you that you're feeling that. That's hard. That's really hard to feel that. And I share that fear quite a bit. My daughter asks me every time we go in the siren, or almost every day, she asks, is Abba, is Daddy gonna come home? Is he gonna be okay? Is he gonna come home? Just recently, she started asking about death, just in general, regardless of this whole story, like people going up to the sky. So she says, will Abba go up to the sky? And I really believe in like a eye-to-eye level conversation with my daughter, even though she's 5. But at the beginning, I said, I hope so. I hope he'll come back. I really hope he doesn't. I hope he comes back. At some point, I realized that I need to change the narrative and say, yes, he will. That's why I was feeling like not really a good parent, because I'm messing
No,
around
but
with
it's such-
everything
it's
that I
such a-
believe in terms of parenting. Like everything is just warped. So it feels like not the correct parenting that I want, right? Not necessarily like as an objective thing, but just for what I want for my children and for my family. But I realized that she needs that. She needs to know that it'll be okay. She needs to know that her dad's going to come back. Today, I think really solidified that she got to see him.
Thank God.
And yeah, and I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow morning when he leaves. So we're going to have to mediate that in some way. If anyone has good tips for that, I'd love to get some. But yes, like it's very scary. And I think also, I mean, my husband is an only child, so I also have my parents, my in-laws to think about.
Wow.
And I just this week realized that she just didn't know that he was a combat soldier, and that's why she was like going about pretty easily. And I was like, no, he's not an intelligence. He's a combat soldier. She's like, what? So then I kind of realized that, okay, now I have them too. I mean, I always knew that I have them too, but it's also a toll. It's also something you need to take into account. And like I have all of these fronts of my own. That's why I really loved the title that you gave to this talk, because we really are at our own front, and it's completely different. Our children changed immensely in these 2.5 weeks. Like my husband said, like she grew taller. No,
Wow.
she didn't. Or, when did she start talking like that? She has like this new intonation, like a music she's doing to her voice. And I'm like, I don't know, it's been there. But for him, it's such a big gap between where we left and where we are now. And I think that will be the biggest challenge when this ends, to kind of figure out how do you pave the way back,
Well,
or more towards where you want it to be.
so yeah, but let me ask you a question, Chevy. You were born here, right?
Correct.
Okay, so, and you're 37.
Yes.
What's your earliest recollection? This is all, I mean, all of our kids, we're here not quite 20 years, but all of our kids have experienced trauma. They've been to funerals they never should have gone to.
Yeah.
Of if not entire families, horrific things, and now even more. What's your earliest trauma? How do you rewind? I can't remember where we were 32 years ago when you were your daughter's age, but where do you remember this seeping into your DNA?
Well, if you have another hour, we could
Okay.
address that. No, I'm kidding. But I'm kidding, but not kidding, because it really does take a lot. Just throughout your question, I was thinking about a few situations. I was born in Israel, moved to the States for 4 years, and came back for first grade in 1992, when all the people my age went just the summer before. It was the Gulf War, and they were all in their safe rooms, which weren't in their houses back then. And they were all talking about how they decorated their gas masks, and it was a thing that they did then. And I was the only one who couldn't tell that story, right? And I was living an entire life with FOMO that I never decorated that brown box of the gas mask. And that was my story until the second Intifada started in 2000. And I was in 9th grade. And someone I knew, Kobe Mandel, was murdered near his house, and I was at his funeral. And then a few months later, I was supposed to be in a terror attack, really saved by 5 minutes. I took a shower that morning, and I missed the ride with my then best friend's aunt. By the time I got to my best friend's house, her aunt was murdered in that same car ride that we were supposed to take with her. So that was the second funeral of someone I knew. And I was in 10th grade at that point. Once I got to the Army, when I was 18, I was able to proudly say, that I attended more funerals in my life than I did weddings. And that's, I think, again, when you go into the Army knowing that, you know, you've gone through all of this. I know, like friends used to come to school from Jerusalem to Efrat or Alon where I studied, and they were like, yeah, they threw a cocktail Molotov bottle at us on the bus on the way here. Like that was unfortunately the norm. You know, till this day, I know that I self-diagnosed myself with PTSD from the tractors, because there was a terror attack when I was in the army. I was an officer leading soldiers through the streets of Jerusalem, and we were, I don't know in miles, but in meters, we were about a half a kilometer away from a terrorist in a tractor, riding a tractor and just killing people with a vehicle. And since, you know, I was the responsible grown up, mind you, I was 19 and a half at that point. And I was responsible of all my soldiers. Maybe I was 20. And till this day, I have like a little bit of an anxiety attack when I pass by tractors.
Mm.
So yeah, it's everywhere. I remember something, actually my dad doesn't remember this story, but when I was in 10th grade, there was a terrorist attack in Efrat. I don't know if you guys know about that. In the area where I lived, which is the older neighborhood of Efrat, and there was a terrorist who tried to get into the supermarket.
Oh, yeah.
And that best friend, her dad was the one who shot that terrorist down, and my mom was across the street. She was on her way to the supermarket, came running home, but I can see the supermarket from the window of my room.
Yeah.
And the body of the terrorist was laid there for a really long time. It felt like hours. And I remember asking my dad, you know, the Muslims, when they die as a shaheed, you know,
As a
there's
martyr,
this whole
what they call
martyr.
martyr.
Yeah. There's like this whole ceremony and whatever, and they stay away from pigs and whatnot. I was like, why don't we just bury him, like wrap him up with pig whatever, and, you know, blow him up or whatever? Like, why are we even dealing with his body? Why do we even care about this terrorist? He came to kill me. Why should I give a damn
Yeah.
about him? And my dad said something that he doesn't remember, but I will never forget. And he said, because we're Jews, we don't do that.
Wow.
And so again, I think, and this memory just came up the other day, when they were talking, how do you say Zaka? I don't know how to
Zaka
say.
is the organization here in Israel that, among other things, primarily has gives proper respect to human remains.
Correct. So they were discussing about, you know, their moral dilemmas, because they're looking through bodies and they don't know if it's a terrorist or if it's a Jewish citizen of Israel, and they're really giving respect to all of them.
True.
And
Good point.
And there was a whole discussion with them about it, and then that story came again. So really, it comes about everywhere, just
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. What do you each? What did I interrupt? You want to finish
No,
something?
I'm just saying it's just so sad. Like now that I'm talking about it even
It's
more,
it's pervasive, and so what prompted my question is, you want your daughter to be normal again, but unfortunately, albeit that this is an extreme situation, this is her normal growing up here.
Yeah.
What do you each need the most now?
I guess like Zacharia back home, if that would be an option.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, the community here is great, and the kids are doing well, which is really good to know. And me for myself, I just need that hug, that yeah, telling me, okay, like someone telling me you're doing well, you're doing good. I mean, I can tell myself, but hearing it from someone else is
Anyone
really
wants to put
important.
some love in the Q&A for Nava and Chevy, please
Yeah.
do. I think you're doing great. Chevy, what do you need? What do you need the most right now?
It's funny because today he came back. So
Yeah.
I'm a completely different person. This morning I was a wreck.
Yeah.
Before he told me he's coming home, I really was a mess. So yes, definitely for them to be back, but also again, on the other hand, I know why he's there. So that kind of gives me like, you know, eyes on the prize, right? Like I know where we're going. It sounds very weird, but I need daycare to work. I know it sounds very strange and it's such a, how did Nechama say, like the nitty-gritty, but I need some alone time. I need no children asking me to do something, give them something, be something for them, so that I could just be for me, just 1 minute.
Do you not have any daycare in Israel? What's going on?
No, my oldest daughter just now started. So yesterday was her first day, and today she had again. But my youngest daughter, she has daycare, but the entire staff are all Arab. And not that I don't trust the Arab workers, that the staff, they're incredible, but I don't trust their brothers, cousins, people who might be threatening them.
Yep.
I don't know who their other circles are, and again, from the fear of sounding racist, and I'm not, it's just I don't know, I can't trust it, and I'm not going to play Russian roulette with my daughter's life. You know, all they need to know is just the code for the gate, and that's it. There's no security there, there's nothing. So I just need daycare. You know, it sounds very strange.
No,
Even
no,
the
but
thought-
No,
that's
that's so understandable. It's like,
oh,
yeah, yesterday morning both kids were out for like almost a whole day, and it was like the first time where I took a cup of coffee and I went for a walk. First time I realized that it had become fall. It's autumn here. All the trees are like, all the leaves fell down, but I felt like because I'm so in what's going on and,
You didn't even
and
see
running
it.
and trying to keep everything running, it's like I
You didn't see it
didn't even
even.
realize that, which is so
Wow.
weird.
Wow.
So weird.
Wow,
Hope
ladies,
that's
this is
not
such a great personal conversation. I'm so grateful. I'm also mindful. I committed to you that I didn't want to take up your time. You both have
yeah.
sleeping kids, and hopefully they will be for the night.
Yes, he's been-
And oh, beautiful.
Now
But
he's
he's a
in.
real soldier,
Excellent.
falling asleep everywhere and anywhere.
Good. He should rest well. That's a beautiful view, and I'm glad you have that there live. But I do want to wrap up. I do want to ask people if they have questions. We'll try to get to them when we put out an appeal for sending some love. So Nava, whoever's cloning you here as Nava number 2 says, Nava, you're amazing, a real superwoman. I would like to echo that for both of you. And Paushali, who we're going to hear from also, had said something like that. Now I shared with the two of you and with Nechama, who was here, and another woman whose husband also came home, and thank God that's where she belongs, not on a Zoom right now. That most of the people following this are Christians, and they're praying and their support. They're donating tremendously generously to the Genesis 123 Foundation. As Israeli Jews, how does that make you feel, knowing that we're getting so much love and support from Christians around the world?
I have to answer that. I have to say, sorry, I'm like jumping the gun right here, but I have to say I have a friend from my previous, it's going to answer your question.
Okay.
He is a pilot in the Israeli IDF.
Sorry,
Israeli
I'm sorry to interrupt. My daughter's up, so I'm gonna
ahead.
run. I'm gonna go be back in a second.
Okay.
Okay.
These are the important things.
So a friend of mine who is a pilot, a combat pilot in the IDF, he's a Druze pilot, which is pretty unheard of. He called me up this week for a pep talk.
Wow.
Last week, it was exactly a week ago. And I didn't know why he chose me. I didn't know, that we haven't spoken for a really long time, probably a little over a year. And just out of nowhere, all of a sudden, and usually when there's combat rounds, I text him because we usually start with the Air Force. So I always say, like, we're behind you, right? So like I always give him like one thing, like take care of yourself and we're behind you. And this time he called me up, and I was analyzing that conversation for days. It gave me so much strength, the fact that he allowed me to talk. And he wanted to hear what we have to say, or what I specifically had to say, and giving me that place to vent and to share and really to unite. And I have to say that tonight I'm feeling the same thing. Like, even though I don't see your faces, but I know that you're in the back end just listening, it really gives that feeling of togetherness and support. And it's kind of like a really nice, comfortable pillow right behind me, exactly when my back hurts. Like, that's really what it is. And that's why I didn't give up on this, even though, Jonathan, I did tell you that I might not be able
No,
to,
I know.
but you know, I really needed this also a little bit for myself, you know, for our soul to be able to talk and to let out emotions and let out thoughts and kind of echo it with other people that we know that will be listening and can do something with this. I think that is it, it's a healing process for us as well. So thank you guys for attending this as well.
Yeah. Nava, anything you
Yeah, and
want?
I also I missed the beginning, but I just wanted to say that I really believe that everyone with their own prayers really makes a difference. So I really appreciate, like, I can't see your faces, but I really appreciate whoever took the time. I know time is something that we don't have enough. So I really appreciate for whoever joined tonight.
Yeah. So there are people joining live and echoing Luann. Thank you for your lovely message about your support in the US, American Christians, and Pauschali in Germany. We're going to speak with you in just a few minutes. A lot of the questions came from people. A lot of the questions repeated the same thing, and it segues a little bit from what we just talked about. How can people pray for you?
And maybe I think there's like something like a understanding about Christianity, maybe something that we're missing. What is that?
No,
What
the people are asking, how can they pray? What can they pray? What strength? What do they need to be praying for each of you, and let that govern their prayers as they are also having conversations with God.
Yeah, I think, peace. That's, you know, Nechama said it really simply before. But I think that's really what we want. And I think maybe I'll think about it a little bit more.
Okay.
Aside
Yeah,
from peace and everyone coming back safely.
I agree, peace in general, but I think right now the prayer I would need the most is just staying strong and doing the best I can. Like
There's going to be more that you both think about, and I'm going to ask you, not just invite you, but ask you to please send me a note, because I'd like to share that as a follow-up. People want to know, and they're having it. They're eavesdropping on a very intimate conversation, and each of you represent many, many, many other women in different scenarios. So the more that you think about, please do share that with me.
So I do have maybe something else.
Sure.
As I was mentioning the healing process, I think as a society, we're going to need it. We've gone through a lot in the last year, and this war is kind of putting all that aside. But once this calms down, I know for sure that, you know, it's already popping up again. So I think, like, as a society, we're in trauma. So just pray that we'll have the understanding and the compassion towards each other, dealing with this in the aftermath. Because now it's easy, or relatively easy.
Relatively easy.
Right, but later it's gonna be hard for us as a society to come back from this.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for that. I'm going to ask you each one last question, and at the same time, I'm going to be bringing in 3 people who are now just watching, and we're going to close out with each of them offering their own prayers. But just before Nechama left, I asked her, "What's the thing that you want the world to know? What have we not discussed? What do you need people who are hearing you today, or in a recording at some point afterward? What do you want people to know?"
I think I mentioned that before, but just knowing that everyone, wherever they are, they can make a difference. And is it by praying, by getting together and do something nice to, like, for the society or anything. I really believe that this is helps bring peace over to everyone. Yeah.
Amazing.
That is. I was gonna go in a different direction.
Any direction.
Go for it.
I echo what you're saying, Nava. I think the most important thing for me is to know what you're spreading around. There's a lot of, fake news, even by people who care and people who want to support Israel and the Israelis and the Jews. There's a lot of misconception and a lot of like even my family members, they ask me, "Oh, I read this on the news. Can you tell me if this is true or not?" And just to be aware that there's a psychological war in addition to the physical war. And it's each and every one of our responsibility to not add to the psychological war and really to be cautious about what we're spreading and how we're spreading it. Yeah, I think that's really something I've noticed from people that have been talking to me that aren't from my immediate circle.
Yeah.
That's pretty important for me.
Chevy and Nava and Nechama who left, I mean, I knew this was an important conversation because I see what's going on and I see and I neglected to ask, but you each kind of addressed it in terms of the support of wider family units and parents and grandparents and in-laws. And again, I can just reflect that from our personal experience. Thank you so much for joining and taking the time. What I'm going to do now, and I hope you'll stay just to listen because I always find this to be so helpful and inspiring. 3 friends who have joined. Samantha, you were just unmuted for a moment, but maybe you'll join us first because you're also sitting in Tel Aviv. If you can unmute yourself, and they're excellent, beautiful. And I would love it if you would begin. We talked about you possibly doing some prayers, the prayers for the state of Israel and for our soldiers, which are so important.
Okay, Jonathan, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, can I make a comment before?
Yes.
Okay, about what I think it was Chevy who mentioned that people who usually have nothing to do with Shabbat or maybe not religiously inclined, that the attacks have changed how people are thinking and feeling. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Chevy and Nava?
Yeah.
I would like to say that I live in North Tel Aviv, which is, the left of Israel. And what she said is 1,000% correct. It's obviously, the attacks, were atrocious. But I hear it from people outside. It's really touched people in terms of their Zionism, in terms of their nationalism. I mean, I live right by the university in Ramat Aviv. So I'm really I'm in the center of it. And it really, what she said is completely true even here.
Thank you for sharing that.
Wow.
Did you want to pick up with those 2 prayers?
Okay, I have a short prayer for the welfare of soldiers in Israel.
Great.
If everyone can hear. Okay. May he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, bless the soldiers of the IDF who keep guard over our country and cities of our Lord, from the border with Lebanon to the Egyptian desert and from the Mediterranean Sea to the approach to the Arava, be they on land, sea, or air. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Joan Bingham, I mentioned before, is a good, not just family friend, but we're family. And I know you notice you're unmuted. Can we ask you to join us in prayer?
Yes, I just want to start by saying that to say that this has moved my heart would be an understatement. And I feel like I have new friends today to pray for, and not just friends, but now family. But I'm so thankful, and I appreciate Jonathan asking me to be a part of this. I've had a trying year this year.
Yes.
But in comparison to what you're going through, it's been nothing. And so I just want to say that in the 121st Psalms, it teaches us the he that keepeth Israel shall never slumber or sleep. And I know that this has caught everyone off guard, but it didn't catch God off guard. And my prayer is that when fear comes, that he replaces it with a faith beyond all understanding, 2 Samuel 22 says, God is our strength and our power, and he maketh our way perfect. And many times when it's hard to see that the way could be perfect, he does, and he can make the way perfect. I'm a living example of that. And as a military mom and as a grandmother, it's my prayer that God will just empower and he'll protect your husbands, those that are listening that have wives or sisters in, that God will protect. And I say, Jehovah Rapha, he is the God that healeth. And it not just physical healing, but he's one that can heal spiritually and emotionally. And from here on out, that's my prayer for each one of you and your family and all of those, but especially you since I've met you. And I thank God that we have been a part of this and will continue to be a part. And if there's any need that you have personally, you contact Jonathan, and Jonathan will contact us, and we'll see that it's met for you, for your children, for somebody in your community. That's why we as Christians are here. You gave us our Savior, and we will forever be indebted for that. So we're here to help and pray for you and surround you with a wall of prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan, and please send love to your family, who is my family.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Paushali is joining us from Germany.
Yeah, hi. I'm just so touched. I mean, it's really incredible. And I'm a mother to 5 kids, so I totally get so many of the things that you were talking about. And I will just give you an encouragement. You have really taken parenting to another level. Really, you are so brave. And I mean, never for a moment doubt what you say to your kids, because, God knows, God knows your needs. And that's what I see as our duty, is to comfort the people of God, which is you guys in Israel. And I just wanted to share a verse from Isaiah chapter 41. And this is for you, for your husbands, where your God says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not frightened, for I am your God. I strengthen you and I help you. I uphold you with my victorious right hand." So this is for you and your families, your children. And I pray to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob for Zachariah, for Tobiah, for David, that all of them will just win this war and return back home safely to their wives and children. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
I'm moved and I'm grateful. Thank you for giving us your evening, your precious hours. That I know that, and I'm glad if it was comforting and important time for you, but you also need time to close your eyes and rest and have the physical strength to go through the endurance that you are and will. So I just want to thank you both here, still live, and Nechama, of course, who was with us at the beginning. And I want to echo what Joan said, that first of all, anyone who can give should please do so at our website, love.genesis123.co, love.genesis123.co. All of that is being dedicated to our Israel Emergency Campaign. And everyone who gives as little as $1, you're just making a difference. I can't thank everybody because there have been thousands. But I do thank you all for following and for listening. And I look forward to having a recap a month after, whenever this war ends, to know that you and your families are all okay and still doing the great parenting that you're doing. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Good
so
night.
much for having
Good night,
us.
everyone. Good night.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you.